So Kevin, we seem to have Kevin Howard here. I'm just going to lock out this and come in on my iPad, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you can see me there, Alan, yeah?
Yeah, I can see you now. Kevin isn't coming in yet. Oh, yeah.
All right.
We have to...
Okay, what do we like on sound there, Alan?
There was a bit of feedback.
Okay. Yeah, is that better, is it?
Yeah, it seems to have dropped.
Is it better, Alan?
Yeah, it seems to have dropped out.
Okay, you know, it's just that I'm running two mics, one on my iPad and the other thing. So, hello, folks. Sorry about our delays. We're a few minutes late. And welcome to Menstuff, How Should Man Live? And the topic that we'd like to start discussing is this whole area of men, boys education from a men's perspective. And I'd like to welcome you to Menstuff. My name is Liam O'Gogan. Sometimes I seem to be on the east coast of Ireland. Tonight I'm on the west coast of Ireland up in Donegal. Just got back here. And I'm joined by Alan Byrne, who's my co-host. So
how you doing, everyone? I just noticed there that I've just checked Alan Moore in. Alan will be with us in a second, but Kevin Howard is still not in.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
So Kevin Howard, you haven't been with us before, and blah. You don't have your video, but if you've audio, Kevin, maybe you might just talk to us there, will you? So, hi, Alan, by the way. Alan Moore, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
How are things? Hey, guys, we need a lot of education in this whole area, I think. You know, two old fellas like you at the top end here, Alan, having a chat about how to work our blab. So we've got a picture of Kevin Howard, who's a little cartoon character there. Alan Moore seems to have done a runner on us. So if you want to maybe send a few notes there, Alan, can you actually, you can note people from there, Alan, can't you?
Okay.
So normally, guys, we have a second host on the program here, but for some reason or other, seem to have a bit of technical difficulty. I'm going to knock you out once more, Alan, and try and bring you back.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so Kevin Hart, I don't see a video for you, Kevin, but I'm just clicking on your Alan Moore. So Alan Moore is back in. And I'm just waiting for Alan GB to come back.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Hi guys, what do the hands do, Liam?
Okay, so what the little hands do, guys, is they're sort of like.
But the sound keeps going for me. I don't know if that is on my phone or if it is. I can't hear anything. Can anybody hear anything?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, no, it's gone really low. Must be my end.
Yeah, I mean, if you
I'm going to log out and log back in again.
Yeah, if you can't hear Alan Byrne, it's obviously on your end.
Can you hear me, Liam? Yeah,
I can hear you fine.
Yeah,
so
I don't know what's going on.
It's not on that end. I'm just not sure what's happened. The hosting element of it, you know.
Yeah, just to let you know. I mean,
Alan Moore is probably still listening, but just to explain the well, we wait till people come back in.
Yeah.
Just Kevin Hard, if you're there, Kevin, you might just type on the right hand side, just to let us know that you're actually able to hear it, Kevin. All right. So I've just sent you a message there. Kevin Hard hasn't been with us before. So we've got a couple of. We have Paul Coleman. Hiya, Paul. And Derek is actually there. So I suppose just, Alan, we spoke a few minutes before we went on air about, you know, what we really, what's involved really at the moment. And I suppose I put the topic down as boys, education, men, in a generality, just to throw it out there and say, you know, where's the world of men in relation to aspects of education? What's our historical experience of education as men, and you know what's going on for young boys in education. Like one thing we hear about is that in Ireland, certainly, and wherever you're in the world listening to this, in Ireland, it would not be untypical for a young Irish boy to go right through primary education until 12 years of age and never ever come across a male teacher. In fact, probably hardly ever see a male other than a school caretaker during the school day. Like in my education, I went to an all-boys school. I was taught by Christian brothers, and in fact, it would have been unusual to have a woman in the school. So there's a massive change in that. I'm not sure how that was for you, Alan.
Yeah, it was the same primary school, all male teachers. It's only when I got to secondary that I had female teachers.
Right. And you know, it's interesting that the colleges of of teacher education, the one in St. Patrick's in Drumcondra in Dublin, when I left school in 1973, there were 4 or 5 friends of mine. I'm sorry, I just see that when I log in, my sound goes, might have to listen.
Yeah, and above that, there's a message from Kevin. So he says, "Hi Liam, I have a headset on. I can hear
all right,
you.
okay. So
my microphone doesn't appear."
The way we work with it, again, because you can type in there, you can guide the conversation or question the conversation or whatever from that space, and we'll try and include that dialogue. Just come back to the St. Patrick's College of Teacher Education. I used to visit some of my friends from who left school with me. Maybe certainly 7 or 8 of them would have gone on for teacher training. In fact, I think in that year there was probably only 1 female student in that class. Now, it was typically the male teacher college. There were female teacher colleges as well, but they used to call them sparrows. You know what I mean? There were so few of them, they just nicknamed them as sparrows. They were unusual. And up to a couple of years ago, you would find it hard to find any young males in education. So I suppose part of the question for me is, I wonder what does that do for the quality of education and the experience of education for both young boys in terms of role models, but also for young girls in terms of experiencing males as teachers. Did you hear me, Alan?
Yeah, but you're breaking up a bit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you were talking about the teacher training college in St. Pat's.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not the only one, and I don't know what the experience is in other parts of the world, but I wasn't involved in education the same way you were. I know you were a college lecturer, so obviously you have a lot to say about it in that respect. The only thing that I can add to it is that my own daughter actually she decided that she was going to become a teacher, and she's recently she's right now in the middle of her teacher training. She's got 4 weeks left. Practical experience working in a primary school, teaching. I think they're 7 or 8 year olds, and I'm just listening to her experience. I'd be helping her out tomorrow doing some project work. She's got to do a lot of creativity, cut some stuff out and cutting and pasting, setting up little projects for the kids, and it's labor intensive. So I'd be giving her a hand with that. So it's a pity, because I'd have liked to have asked her a few questions about her experience, so that we could talk about it now tonight. But we can like you said earlier, we can continue to have this conversation perhaps next week if there's enough material there. But I don't know what you think about young teachers today. To me, what she did say to me was, when she finished the first part of it, I remember there were a couple of guys there, but there was mostly girls, mostly young female teachers in the college. I'd say it was probably 3/4 female and 1/4 male. So there is going to be and is still an issue with that.
Sorry, I was just sticking in. We're all on techie land tonight. I'm just sticking in a headset.
I don't know why we're having so many problems, actually, because this is the first time that it's taken this long to sort it out.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is real Educo education stuff.
I'll put a timer on for you, buddy. Okay.
I'm gonna explain this by saying I just came from the West Coast or the East Coast to the West Coast, and I'm in a time zone problem. Just to notice, Kevin Hart, if I kick you back out again, it's simply because you haven't got a mic, Kevin, and hold on, we'll just let you in there just in case you have got a mic running there. Can you hear me, Kevin? Again, if you still haven't got a mic, Kevin, what I do is I just kick you back into the audience, and there'll be a space. There'll be a space at the table there, and if anybody wants to come in, then sorry.
Liam's gone, is he?
Yeah, he's just dropped out, but he's probably okay. So, Kevin, I see your commentary there on the right hand side. That's great. Have you noticed that there, Liam?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just pulling it in there. Sorry, I was just so there were quite a few men who told me. All right, so again, just to read this into the record, guys, just from a technology point of view, the video on this will be recorded, but the commentary that goes in on the box on the right hand side does not get recorded. So any of the comments that are pinned there, I'll just read them into the record. So Kevin I was just saying there were quite a few men who taught you, Kevin. There was in England in the 1960s. Some of these men, 4 I remember vividly, were war veterans. That's interesting. And the younger men were infused with many of the ideals of the late 60s. Progressivism, the first sign of this progressivism was Thatcher removing the free milk and buns for all the children. Yeah. It was a Catholic school, interesting. Most kids were children of immigrants, overwhelmingly Irish. Our experience was mediated, therefore, by the gender dynamics, many more males being immigrants. So, yeah, in some way, there's not that much of a dissimilarity between that experience and an Irish experience, except, I suppose, it's very interesting what you point out there, Kevin. Many of those teachers would have been veterans of the war. And, I suppose, like you, Kevin, most of us grew up reading little comics about the war, and the Germans were always the bad guys. They hadn't discovered the Russians or the Chinese or the Islams or whatever, but it was Germans. Vorsicht, Achtung, Achtung. So it must have been almost an exciting connection to have people who themselves were directly, involved in the war. And that brings me the idea of that you do hear from grown men the stories of their youth, and as a young boy in education or a girl in education, as your kids in school, that's missing when you don't have men in education. That's that element of it,
Sorry, guys, am I distracting you guys? Sorry.
No, it's not. It's just that you seem to have a halo behind your head all the time. And
I forgot to tell you that I'm actually a saint.
Oh, well, I was just thinking, but we just want to see your face, not the halo behind you, So,
Yeah,
Alan, can I just ask you, as you can see, myself and Alan Byrne here are grumpy old men here, but you have young kids. You've a couple of boys, young kids in school and education at the moment. What age are they?
Yes. One is, let's say, there's a big range. Like, for instance, I've got a guy in 5th year now.
All right.
Who's 17.
Right.
I was in 6th year and 17, but he's done transition year, which I didn't do.
Right.
I also have a son in 6th class who's got to do his confirmation this year. I have one in high babies and one in Montessori. So there is a huge range,
Right.
And the youngest is will be 5 in a few months. So it's a big range, So I've had a lot of experience with the school system.
And I know you and I have often had long conversations, Alan, about your pretty irreverent view of classical education. I know that, And
well, I've a very reverent view of classical education.
No, irreverent, by the way. I didn't say reverent. I meant you're quite irreverent about classical education.
Yeah, I'd be more irreverent about modern education. I think there was things in education that were taught in the past which were more valuable than what's being taught now. My issue with education is I heard you saying about there's not a lot of men teaching, and I can understand why. I think education is one of the most important jobs you can possibly do, to pass on your information to a younger generation. Probably one of the most important jobs. Now, I know that particularly in primary school, as a man, I would never ever do it because I'd be just afraid to do it, to be honest with you. Well,
what do you mean by that, Alan?
I feel like, one person says one thing that's taken out of context, and your life can be completely ruined. So I'd be just for me. I would be thinking, well, I'm okay as I am, and why do I want that in my? Why do I want that possibility in my life? So and also my issue with the education as it is now is that it's different in college. You're a lecturer in college, Liam. That is a little bit different, but certainly in secondary and primary school, a teacher has no real input into the syllabus. Syllabus is set by a bureaucrat in the Department of Education. I listened to a teacher on the radio. She was talking about it, and she wanted to talk to the kids and see where they wanted to go. I think the Montessori system is brilliant because the thing that I don't know a huge amount about it, but the thing that I like about it is that it asks the child what the child is interested in, and then whenever the child says, "I like that jigsaw, I like that truck over there, I like that," that's what they do, and they do nothing else until the child gets bored of it and wants to do something else. So it's child directed. Whereas I just feel that education as is now is bureaucrat directed, and it's government directed, and it comes down from government bureaucratic dictate, and onto it's not bottom up, it's top down. That would be my one issue with it now. And I think that education and learning, kids love learning. You can see when a child is born and it's whatever age it happens to be, all the child wants to do is get up and walk. It's very excited about learning how to walk, and there's no shortage of excitement about education and learning in any child. And I think it's an incredible system that we have that actually beats the excitement of learning out of children. By the time they leave school, they just don't want to learn anymore. Not everybody, obviously. Everybody has a different experience, and I can't say what everybody's experience is, but I think it's true for a lot of people, and it was certainly true for me.
Yeah, it always amazes me as to how many actually do go on to third level education. It's an awful long period of time in a short life to be studying and in education and learning all the time. And certainly after the battering of the last 2 years in secondary school, with the leaving cert, I think they're just exhausted, and there they go. They sign up and they go off and do another 3 or 4 years, or even 5 years, depending on the subject that they take in third level education. It's amazing.
Yeah, I just want to take you back to Kevin added another comment there. We had been talking earlier. Again, Kevin heard he can just view because of his microphone situation tonight. But we were talking about his experience growing up in England, being taught by men who were actually war veterans. And as I said, he just put in there. Yeah, one of these guys had lost a leg, and what was interesting, what Kevin said, it was their completely derisory view of this. That the value of those older men only came to one later, and so it's true that, like most people, we don't appreciate things when they're there. But even the fact, Kevin, that you can look back and reflect on these means that something was being passed on to you even at the time. So I suppose the thing I'm saying is that the experiences we have, if we take education in 3 levels, and if we leave out the sort of preschool level just for a moment, just take what we see in our primary or initial level, and in different countries it's different things, but basically up to, say, about 12 years of age from 4 or 5 years of age, that's first experience. If we just sort of interrogate that idea first, I think, remember, if you think about it, kids are very physically small, so the bodies that they see around the school, especially in the earlies, are huge, and if you hear a huge booming male voice, it sounds quite different than the timbre of a woman's voice, for example. And one of the things I was poking at was here the absence of that presence of males in the classroom space, and what does that mean? I know that a couple of years ago I was doing some project work which involved there was a particular male primary school or a primary teacher student. He was on the process, and he did some surveys for me. And when I spoke to him, I mean, the guy was only 20 years of age. He hadn't actually graduated then, but he had major concerns over, the whole world of the language and how the whole conversation about child sexual abuse has moved. Like if you walked into a room where you saw a man with a child, who's not that child's father or whatever, you sort of look at them, hey, what's going on here, you know? And the idea of, say, tactility with children, especially young children, I mean, it's necessary often to help them be physically tactile with them. And the reactions and the expositions of sexual abuse have made it, I think, a really dangerous territory. If you look at young primary teachers, they have a long, slow wage scale rise. They have to have very high qualifications to get in, or in Ireland, what we call points from your exam system to get in. And they go into this job where they're sort of looking over their shoulder all the time. And, you know, the danger of an allegation being made against you. And of course, once an allegation of sexual abuse is made against you, it doesn't matter whether it's proved or not, you're tainted for life. It's much easier for those guys to go off and become solicitors or working somewhere, you know, working in an executive position in finance or something like that there. And I think that's probably, it's not that, I don't think it's that men haven't been interested in education. In fact, I do hear lots of young men, they'd like their sporting types, their musical types, they'd like that, the time off, they'd like the scheduling around that, but that's counterbalanced by that sense of fear in relation to that. And I think that's something of major concern, because, you know, kids are not being deprived of males because males are bad for education of kids. They're being deprived of males for other reasons in society which are damaging the imagery of all men.
So I see Kevin has added another comment there. Alan, the younger's fear of stepping into that primary, secondary teaching space is sad to hear. Teaching to the test destroys the learning experience.
Yeah,
it's very, very true, and I agree with you, Liam. That's what I'd be. No, I have a number of different things that would be an issue.
Sorry,
for
can
me.
I just ask you? Are you in the schools your kids are in?
Mm-hmm.
Have they male teachers? You know, starting from the youngest up. Who teaches them in Montessori?
Yes, the primary school. Oh, the Montessori, it's all women. There's no men at all, and it never would be.
Why do you say that? Why do you say there never would be?
Because I know that men have gone for interviews, and it's a business, and the business has to be concerned about what their customers think. And there can be, like, for instance, you know, there was a story recently about a taxi driver who was he was reported to the guards. He missed 6 or 7 weeks of work because he was dropped I don't know what the age was, but it dropped a girl, I assume was, you know, 15, 16, 17 into school. And he kissed her when she was on the way into school, and he was reported, and the guards got involved. Now, they found out it was his daughter he was dropping to school.
Yeah.
And but he still missed 6 weeks of work, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Once something is said, it's like the Stephen Avery thing. Once something is said, you're guilty no matter what. So it's something you do have to be aware of, you know, as an intelligent person who wants to, you know, knows the way things are. But, you know, in the Montessori, no, it would never be possible, because people would say, why is there a man in there, or why? And as a business, you can't do anything that your customers aren't going to be happy about, you know. So you have to be aware of that. So if someone says, well, you know, she said a man dropped her to school or something like that, it can be an issue, you know. So just the way to just delete all those issues straight away is there's never any suspicions with a woman. So if there's just women there's no suspicions, and you all those issues go away straight away. You know, why would you want to have those issues in your life? You don't need them. That's just the way it is. And in primary school now, my boys had some men, and I was really happy about that. There's a teacher when they were in low babies, and he is brilliant. He was just brilliant. He was so connected with the kids. He was so on their level. I'm not saying that in a negative or insulting way, but he really understood them.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. And there was also I had a big issue as well, that I think that I was going in for parent-teacher meetings, and in the parent-teacher meetings, I felt like it was always great. Things are fine and stuff like that. But I felt that there was a lack of honesty. They wanted to tell me that everything was okay. And they wanted to tell me that things were going fine. And if there was anything negative, they would kind of allude to it, but they would never say anything out straight. But then I noticed when he was in a male teacher's class, the male teacher would say, listen, he's behind in this. We need to deal with this. You need to read to him or whatever. But he'd be honest with me, and he wouldn't be worrying about my feelings. I'm a big boy. I don't need anyone to worry about my feelings. I need to know the truth. And that was a big issue for me with the secondary school, or with the primary school, sorry, because I think that they were afraid of hurting my feelings, but they wouldn't tell me the truth. No, if there's issues, I need to know so I can deal with them. With my boys, so I did feel that was happening a little bit, that it was they weren't 100. They would be honest, but honest in a very roundabout way, and they wouldn't just come out and tell you if there was issues. And I much prefer people just were honest and tell me where the issues are, so we could deal with them. But there was some male. Sorry, there was 2 male teachers, and it was about 25% male, 75% female.
Yeah, just I'm just again, I want to read a comment here by Kevin Howard. Again, just folks, if you're watching this, the reason being because Blab doesn't capture the dialogue on the right hand side, and obviously if we're going to leverage this up onto YouTube, it's not included. And I had been mentioning the issue around the fears that young men particularly would have getting into education jobs, and Kevin Howard has said, he said it would be interesting to know how real this sense of fear that I have referred to actually is. He said, I think it would require the kind of qualitative research that would feed into policy change if the state is interested, and that's another question. So that's just the first comment. And the second comment he just added in there, which is interesting. When we talked at Montessori, Kevin says that there is a male-run creche in Kilkenny here in Ireland, for example. That, again, it's interesting for us to know that these things are happening. What I would say, and that is true, that a lot of what we get to believe is sort of urban myth or anecdote. And in the same way that you, Alan, and Moore had said that from a business perspective, it's easier for a business manager, just don't take the risk, employ women. The difficulty around is it almost becomes a self-perpetuating belief system about this. I think what I would look at what would men or what do men bring to the educational process. Now, one of the things you said you found, Alan Moore, there was that when you went to meet a male teacher on a parent-teacher level, I think you said that when you dealt with female teachers, they were like to reassure your emotions, whereas you felt you had a much more direct factual conversation with the male. Now, I'm not sure how he might have addressed a mother, for example, he was talking to. I don't know that. But I would say, I mean, certainly my memory of education was I was talking to Alan earlier about reflecting into that space. I mean, I went to school in 1960 probably, so I spent the first 60 God, what an age. Yes, it was 60. So, because I was 10 in 1966 at the celebration of the centenary. So I had female teacher in babies and high infants, or maybe just babies, and then high infants had a male teacher, and male teachers all along. And we lived in those days, corporal punishment was the norm. And again, in this Blab, if you're a younger person looking at this and you're saying, God, he's elfless. I and others of my ilk are the scars of having corporal punishment, which has now been replaced by a world where God, even parents themselves can't remonstrate with their kids using any physical force at all. So I don't know how my parents or any older person would have kept me in the box unless there was some method by which they could control me. I want to say that. But I think a lot of the teachers, one of the things that were very good is, I mean, we were involved with teachers who were very involved in sport. So they were active out in the yards and the football pitches and stuff like that with us, which I think kept us very agile, I suppose, and active, and burned off a lot of our youthful male energy. There are two things which I see affecting that in the schools at the moment. I mean, one of the big things is, I put it into the link on the email that I sent out earlier, a link to Cat Stevens' song, Where Did Children Play? And even in my alma mater, I passed it recently, and they're building more buildings into the little bit of schoolyard that was left. And I often think that so much real education takes place in the yard, where you've got to cut it with your buddies and cut it with your peers. I wonder what you think of that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just wanted to comment on something that you said earlier on about if corporal punishment wasn't used, it would be very hard to control you. Now, my own experience of that, I have never hit any of my kids, and that is a conscious decision that myself and my
That's
wife
because you're
made,
a saint. I can
that we
see
never
that halo
would.
there. I'm telling you.
That's right. That's right. But it's interesting what you say, that it's hard to, but it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, because if a kid is hit, then there's a thing called what I think what they call now defiance disorder. But if a kid is in a situation where they are protected, and there's a connection with the parent, I don't think the violence is required, and
I like,
I've never had it, but
I like,
and my kids aren't perfect, but I don't have to control them, because they want to, they know I want what's best for them, and they want to, not that they want to keep me happy or anything like that, but just they're happy, not going crazy or running around or whatever. I'm not sure how to put it into words, but I do think that if in this particular environment you don't necessarily need that, But if there is violence with kids when they're small, I think you will always need it, because you built those genes or wherever it is, and that's inside them now, and you will need it later on. Absolutely.
just to say to you, Alan, I see one man up the wall behind you there. You better pull him down there.
You might.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing? You're welcome to join us Irish paddies here, so you are, Joel.
Great to see you. Great to see you, gentlemen.
How are you? It's good to hear a U.S. accent.
I can try and do an Irish one.
You'll go far. Actually, the thing is, if you're in Ireland, we all have different accents. It's just that all the Yanks think we're all the same. So tell us, where are you from, Joel? And where's the, in terms of the topic, where do you sit in relation to? Right.
Yeah, I'm in LA, but I'm from Portland, the state just above California, in the States. And I'm listening, and I'm hearing both sides, and I agree with both. And I was spanked as a kid, and I don't have children of my own, but I have 2 dogs, and I beat the shit out of the first one. Because I'm a traditionalist, and I think spare the rod, spoil the child, and he's fucking good. He's a good dog. He listens. The other one, I can't. She's a girl dog, and I can't bring myself to hit the girl dog.
That's violence against women. You can't be doing that.
So, but she's not as good. But I feel like she loves me more, and that's like the only observation I've made as far as discipline and everything goes. So that's my thoughts.
you see, in Ireland, what we do is we practice on the children, and then when we get that right, then we implement that with our animals. You're obviously doing it the other way around. The
other way around,
yeah. You haven't got it right at all, But can I just ask you, in LA, I mean, in Ireland, I'm saying we have a particular experience which has developed over the last 20 years or so, where there have been very few men in the lives of younger children, and certainly in their primary level of education up to about 12 years of age.
Yeah.
There's been a massive lack of that. Is there a similar situation in the States? Is there, or at least where you are?
In the States, in LA, everything kind of moves at the pace of culture and the poverty level. So your lower income people will be more likely to spank their children or use corporal punishment more openly. But I do believe the older generations that are rich on the west side of LA, I believe they may be hitting their kids, and but not openly.
In relation to the teachers, are in the junior cycle of school. No, but are in the junior cycle, is it? Are there many male teachers? I mean, we have very few male teachers in the junior cycle. Are they? I mean, that's a big shift in our society over the last 20 years, where it was quite normal to have. Particularly, we would have had segregated. Sorry, we had boys' schools and girls' schools, but boys would have met boy teachers.
Right.
That's not happening in Ireland in general anymore. I'm just wondering, is there a shift like that in the States?
There's a good mix of male teachers at a primary education level.
Right.
From kindergarten. Right. I think kindergarten and first grade. So this is, 4-year-old, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, that's primarily females, but still I'd say, 60-40. And then it only increases from there, I'd say, maybe
right.
70-30.
Yeah, just again, I just want to, we have a guy, Kevin, who has, his mic's not operating, so I just want to include his dialogue in this conversation, but he has just said there about Alan Moore's talk earlier. He just said Alan's observation about young teachers not saying anything negative is well made. It might reflect the broader cultural shift, for example, in relation to providing a student reference. Nothing negative can be said, at least not in writing. That refers, Joel, to Alan was just saying that as when he would go to parent-teacher meetings, he felt that when he met female teachers, they were keen to make him feel okay and that there wasn't a problem in school, and they weren't really upfront with him. Whereas he felt when he dealt with a male teacher, he got it up front. He just said, "Look, I can deal with the emotion." So the second one,
I'll take that one, Liam. Sports is crucial. Sorry, Kevin goes on to say that sports is crucial, as are the ways in which people get to and from school. We cycled 12 miles a day. That was 60 miles a week. I don't think corporal punishment is necessary. My kids have never been hit except in the boxing ring or by a peer. And actually, just in relation to that, when my daughter, she was only, I think she was around a year old. I remember she was doing something naughty, and I remonstrated with her. I might have given her a tap in the hand, but there was a Polish friend of ours there, and she said to me, she says, "Why are you hitting her?" She said, and so I started to do the daddy thing, and then she says, if that was me or somebody else, another adult who pissed you off, would you hit them, And of course the answer is no. Otherwise you'd get a smack yourself, So that was a valuable lesson for me.
Well, can I just challenge? I want to go back to that. And you said an adult said to you about your reaction with a 1-year-old child. Yeah. Said, if it was me, so it compared that relationship, that adult dialogue, to a 1-year-old child adult dialogue. I just think that's for me. In my analysis, different. Of that it's invalid. Let me give an example.
What's the lesson? I wonder what Alan's lesson was though through that.
Yeah, well, I never laid a finger on her again. I believed then in the power of negotiation, pointing out things that were wrong. There's other ways of teaching children that they're wrong. You don't need to smack them.
Sorry, when your daughter was kicking Mike underneath the table on her holidays in Wales, I don't see what you did to remonstrate your daughter and protect my child. Sorry. Let me give an example. I want to give an example. There's a friend of mine whose grandson, and he was a little younger than my eldest son, but he went over to an open fire. And he was told repeatedly, "Don't go near the fire." And that grandparent family, the parents in that family did never interfere physically with that child, etc. That child fell into the fire, and his whole throat from down here has been disfigured since then. Now, I put it to you, my late mother would have said to me always, "Never negotiate with a child under 4." That's what she said. Never negotiate. The second thing she said to me, never slap a child when you're angry. Slap the child before you're angry. In other words, when you slap the child, it's like crossing a line. Don't do that because of this. That Polish person spoke to you said that child, if I pissed you off, so it's a different dialogue altogether. So I'm not saying, my argument would absolutely be there are many situations where you need to intervene. If you see a child cross the road, for example, and run in front of a car, would you intervene? Would you smack that child to stop them doing it again? There's another question of the psychology of whether that's the best way of doing it. But I don't think we should frame it up like Alan Moore called this violence earlier. I mean, I think if we start framing things in that language, I don't think we can look at any nuance here. And I think nuance is where it's at. If you, for example, have a class of people and they're killing each other in a class, let's say the whole crowd of young fellas killing each other just out of raw energy. I mean, I can tell you that saying, "Boys, sit down, this is not very good for your, it's not good behavior," etc. I'm not sure, guys. I don't know what, I've never seen that work anywhere. Like, I've never seen, I don't think with young male ends. So I just wonder, I mean, maybe this is not PC to be saying this, but, there's a complete difference between trying to punish children because you're getting off on some sort of S&M kick and doing something. I mean, I'd like to challenge that. That's all.
Yeah. So Kevin just comments here on the right hand side. He says, "I don't see any value in either parents or teachers, any adults hitting kids. It never taught me any lessons, and I was battered to fuck by adults and teachers. It taught me no worthwhile lessons." So that's just commentary from the right side there.
I hear what you're saying, Liam, as well.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that. No, I hear what you're saying, Liam. Obviously, if a child is running in front of a car, or if a child is about to go into a fire, you need to intervene there, obviously. But if I was on the road and a woman I'd never seen before was running for a car, I would also intervene. You know, there's no difference between how I would react with the child. Now, I'm not saying that no violence means no discipline. I'm certainly not saying that at all. I think discipline is very, very, very important. My own method, what I do is if there's something that's going on that I'm not happy with, and I don't think it should be going on, like for instance hitting, they can hit each other. What I will normally do is I'll go down on my knees and make sure I'm on their level, looking at them directly in the eye, and I'll let them know this is not okay. And if it continues, I will just separate them, which means I will move them up to the room. Now, it works for me because I have a lot of time. I have a lot of time with them, so I do a lot of things with them. And I think it only works if you're going to be spend a lot of time with them. If you can't, if you're working all the time, you don't have a lot of time with your kids, you probably have to hit them then. You know, it's the only way to do it. But if you have a lot of time with them, and you know, if one of them is having a tantrum, you know, it happens sometimes, and they're out of control, I can lift them up and bring them to the room and close the door and sit there with my phone. I can play some game on my phone for 15 minutes while they get out of it. So, you know, I'm not saying that if anyone hits the kids, you know, knock yourself out if you just feel like whacking them around the place or whatever, you know, or you feel like they're going to fall into a fire and you have to let them know not to fall into fires. I'm not making any judgments necessarily, but what I'm saying is I'm just saying what I did. I'm just saying what I did and what worked for me.
Just a comment here. Liz, I think it's Liz or Liz. She says, "I know I'm not a man, but I'm a mom of a little boy, so I figure this information is useful for me." Yeah, excellent, and you're welcome, Liz. I mean, the one thing about this, just to say, I mean, the title of this series of conversations is "How Should Man Live?" ? And I mean, the question mark to me is the most critical element of this. I think all of this is, I don't know that I have a view and I've questions to ask, and I'd like those questions interrogated like I will do others. And all we can learn from each other, as you said, Alan, we deal with situations as we face them. And also the dynamics, you know, for example, in relation to the time available to the, or alternate stresses you're under affect things. I mean, I would ask the question in schooling, and I'm talking about in a schooling situation here, is how does one invoke discipline if you move away from corporal punishment? And what sort of methods are used, and how effective are they, and how do children experience them, and what do you think of that? You know?
Yeah, I the way I would answer that is mostly I don't know, because I think it's an unnatural situation to have 30 young men or whatever, 15 young men, 15 young women in a room for a certain amount of time. It's an unnatural situation. It's not a situation that we have had for millions and millions and millions of years. Only in the last 500 or more, maybe, I'm not sure, when I guess it was a push education system kind of started the whole schooling system. When would push should be at 500-600 years ago or something like that. But it's not something that is a natural situation. There's something I heard of just very recently, and it's up close to me. There's a place called Kilruddery, and it's a big old house. I guess it was probably an English landlord's house at some stage or something like that. But there's lots of land around. It's a beautiful place, and I just heard recently that there's a school up there. It's not a school as such, but it's two young guys who are with the kids up there, and it's all outside. They do everything outside. It's like what the Irish probably would have called a hedge school years and years ago. Now, I don't know an awful lot about it, but just when I heard about it straight out, I was like, wow, that's amazing. That is the sort of school I would have loved to gone to, you know, that they're outside doing archery and they're doing bowls or whatever it is, and they're learning as well. And it just sounds really interesting. Now, I'm probably speaking out of turn because I don't know very much about it, but I think that is more of a natural situation. It's more of what I would have liked my kids to go through, to be honest with you. But, you know, you take what's there.
Yeah, I just want to add in a comment here with Paul Coleman. He's saying, when my children were in junior infants, the Department of Education introduced a diktat that they wanted a male parent and a female parent on the board of management. So actually, that's another aspect of the whole educational experience of parents' involvement with the structure of education in the school process. I mean, certainly when I was in school, the parents sent their kids to school and that was it. They didn't really have any say in what was going on there. Can I just ask you, Joel, in the States, what's the parental involvement do you know of in terms of the schooling dynamic? Like, for example, Alan Moore has described a type of model of schooling that he would like to see happen. What input would you have in the States into what goes on in terms of the child experience?
It's actually kind of tragic. My grandmother, when she was still living a few years ago, was a ESL, that's English Second Language assistant for a public school in our community. So I got to see things very closely through her, and the parents are not involved. Some are the ones who really care, but that's kind of a smaller percentile. The greater of them send them to school, they come back. It's basically daycare because it's free, It's a public school system, and I really think things are going in the way where we're going to only have charter schools and private schools because public school just isn't working. It's just not working. And she broke the mold and in really brought in positive reinforcement. And would give these kids simple things like stickers, and she made kids who wouldn't talk to anybody blossom and talk and learn and all this stuff. And she had a nurturing side of her that she would partner with a male companion who would bring that, sternness that a child needs. They need that, like Alan was saying, they need both the female to nurture and the male to guide, But that's not what we see. That's not what we see.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very true. And it's interesting what you're saying, Joel, that within the system, there's some there's some terrible teachers, let's be honest, but there's some really, really, really great people. There's really great people. And but the problem is that, and I don't know if you'll find this. It was your partner you were talking about, was it?
It's grandmother. I think you're.
It was
my grandmother.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, your grandmother. Sorry. But the interesting thing is, I think that the way the school system is, and I don't know if it's the same in Ireland, but I know that in Ireland, you can't go too far away from the syllabus, particularly in secondary school.
Exactly.
And you don't have that much control. And the problem with a really good person like that is they'll put their heart and soul into it. But I wonder, after 5-10 years, is your heart and soul eaten out from just following this bureaucrat's syllabus and not being able to do what you want to do? I don't know, but I wonder, do good people get ground down because of that?
They do.
Yeah, just want to
Go ahead.
I just want to add in a comment to keep other people in the dialogue there.
Yes.
Again, just remind us, because we see this project of developing the How Should Man Live question mark process as something to which we built a YouTube channel just this week, and we've had our previous programs, and so we're trying to keep the dialogue going. And one of the limitations of Blab is that it doesn't capture the rich content along the side. So, comment by Kevin again has been, he says, abuse is relative. He said, if I smacked my child, it would, I think, be traumatic because he's never been hit by me. He says, I didn't and don't regard our teachers punishing us physically as having been abuse. He just feels it was useless and alienating. And he just also said the schooling, as we know, is being an industrialized process. And it makes me wonder if it was ever fit for purpose in terms of nurturing, guiding kids. And that goes back to what Alan Moore said, that at the start of the Industrial Revolution, or say prior to the Industrial Revolution, where people lived fairly rural environments, the education of children was managed on two levels. One is the natural education of how to live in your community, which come from working with your family and your kids. And then every now and then would go together in group and have some sort of community learning. We have absolutely, as you said, daddy daycare, or it's school daycare. Joe, the other extreme is that you simply ship them into a locked up environment while the parents then go off and become robots somewhere else. And I think that's sad in a way. And I think
that's our culture. That's our civilization.
Yeah, but I think the internet has brought, I think one of the powerful things here is that I would love to see, and I think a lot of teachers would love to see, that using internet dialogue like we're using now, video streaming, that you could actually have parental engagement in the educational process with their kids while they're still able to work remotely elsewhere. And I think that we can go into a post-industrialized space where we could have, but we need an understanding from the teaching community that there's a collaborative process of education from the elders to the youngers. That's what I'm saying. And I think there could be quite innovative stuff there. I personally think my experience of dealing with teachers in primary education, Ireland, is I generally think they're very motivated, very excited. I know your daughter, Alan Byrne, who's becoming a teacher. I mean, she's chosen this lifestyle. And the worry I would have from, as you said, Alan Moore, that they're worn down by the bureaucracy of a system that they themselves can't contribute to. I think that's sad.
So yeah, just I don't know whether Kevin, whether you read Kevin's message there. Schooling, as we know, is an industrialized process, and it makes me wonder if it was ever fit for purpose in nurturing and guiding kids. Did you mention that, Liam?
Yeah, just what he just said. I mean, Kevin just saying this, the internet, even what we're doing here at the moment, someone in the USA is we are fascinated and liberated. I mean, part of what we'd hoped in this dialogue would develop. I mean, Joel, you're in a different, like 1 year in a different weather space than us for starters. I mean, you know, God help you. God help you. But anyway.
It's 74 degrees right now.
I know, but it's much healthier when you're in here in the wind and the rain.
I agree.
It's great for creativity. Believe it or
Californians,
not.
spoiled. These men in California, they don't know how to change a tire, nothing. They're not men down.
No, you wouldn't believe I was only 25, would you?
25. What, Alan? What you say now?
The comment that Kevin made there, fit for purpose. I think the model that was they started out with probably was fit for purpose because people weren't educated at all. Nowadays, that education, especially I notice here in Ireland, I mean, kids are even a lot smarter than our generation, I think. They've different ways of learning. There's different technologies there. There's a hell of a lot of different ways that you can teach children, and we've got to be clever as adults. I think we've got to be clever about how we do that. And I just think that's, you know, it's open, it's wide open. The old school teaching methods, the bureaucracy that Alan talked about earlier, all of that can be changed. It's just that you have to have willpower to do that, and no politician in this country will ever have the willpower to change that model. I think, you know, it's going to be bottomed down, led from the people, you know.
But another thing
that's very true.
Another thing I question, the other aspect of it is that I think there's another gap, and this is the concept of sort of the digital natives and the digital immigrants. If we take, let's say parents and you know, because we're talking about men's issues here, I suppose say fathers whose experience of education may have been, let's say 25 years ago. So let's say you're a father in your late 30s or early 40s. The likelihood is your experience of technology, I mean, you'd have learned it as a digital immigrant. You're picking it up going backwards. I know from your kids, Alan Moore, when I saw them a couple of years ago in the house, I was fascinated when the first you had bought them 2 iPod Touches, and I went into your sitting room and there's these little tiny kids for whom the iPad Touch proportionally like an iPad to me, and they were just picking up these things and just pressing the buttons and working. So I just wondered that there's a lot of almost lack of self-esteem or fear for parents, and even in investigating what's going on with the kids' learning styles, because they're completely lost. I mean, interesting. Kids are going to teach parents. I mean, I was a guy up with me the other day who, apart from he actually suffers heavily from dyslexia, and yet his kid has all the Skype and this and that and the other on the phone and FaceTime and everything else. And I'm just saying, just let your daughter teach you. Now, isn't that an interesting thing? I mean, the very thought that I would have been teaching my parents at 12 years of age is almost a bit like Jesus Christ teaching old guys in the temple or something. It's not. It's so there's a whole learning. It's in fact letting go of the reins of being what they would call the sage on the stage for parents is a big. It's a big challenge, I think, you know.
And it gives children power to some extent, which is a very interesting dynamic in the parent-child relationship.
Yeah, True. I remember reading a story years and years ago. It was about Ireland, you know, in the maybe, I don't know how long it was, maybe 100 years ago or something like that. But the kid was learning how to read, and the mother was the kid would read to the mother. It's very, very similar. The mother was looking at him and just thought it was magical that he could look at these symbols on a page and he knew what they meant because she didn't have a clue. And I guess it's the same with computers nowadays. And I know for myself that when I went out into the working world, I was very computer literate. I just loved computers. I just always loved computers, and particularly in school and after school. And I would go to a lot of places where I could just do things like databases and whatever. And I would be always very, very useful to people because I was this like computer whiz kid who could always do all these things computers that no one else could do. This was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they would look at me, oh, Alan can do this, Alan can do. It was great. I was very useful and everyone liked to have me around and I was a useful guy. And now it's funny that I'm at the stage now where there's lots of young people coming up, and I feel like I'm the old guy now, and they know those things that I don't know.
Oh no!
I know all the useless things now. But there's one thing I just wanted to say quickly. Sorry, guys. There's one thing I just want to say quickly about school. And I was watching Making a Murderer, Stephen Avery, recently, and there was a young guy in it. His nephew. I'm trying to think of his name. It'll come back to me in a few minutes. But his nephew was in school, and the police came in and took the nephew out of school, and they interrogated him on his own. No lawyer there, no mother there, nothing. They just interrogated him, and he basically confessed to the murder, and that he did the murder with his uncle Stephen. And what was interesting, he was talking to his mother afterwards. His mother was saying, why did you say that? Like, none of that happened. Why did you say it? And you're telling me now it didn't happen, but why did you say it to the police? And he was saying, well, they kind of got into my head. And he said, what do you mean? Well, they were asking me questions and I was just answering, well, how did you come up with all that stuff? And he, well, I guessed what they wanted, just like I do with my homework. And and it really struck me that this kid, all he learned in school was how to make authority happy. And it ended up him in prison for the rest of his life. All this school was teaching was, this is how you make people in authority happy. And when he's in this situation where he was being interrogated by police, he couldn't stand up for himself, and not to an authority figure. He had to say whatever he thought the authority figure wanted him to say, and it ended up in prison. And I wonder how many kids that's what they're learning in school. And I think with the internet now, every piece of information that we ever want is online. All we have to really teach kids is how to be brave, be confident, and how to research what they want to know. That's all we really need to teach them, and they can do everything else themselves.
And that's the paradigm shift, I think, is we're going from just to what Liam was speaking about, an industrial culture of appease the authority and follow and be a slave almost, to now we're getting information overload. I'll tell you, because I've done my research, because I can research anything. And
yes, exactly.
We can come to a clear understanding if both of us can, it's all about who can out Google who else,
Just again, bringing in some comments from the side there. And again, I'd like to thank all of our guests here today, but also we have 37 lurkers out there. And I spoke, actually, some guy stopped me on the East Coast this week who recognized me, knows me, and said, oh, I've been watching your blab, he said, but I'm not actually within the Twitter space. So again, guys, you're all welcome. But Paul Coleman has made a comment here. It's interesting. Again, in Ireland here, Joel, we in our second level system, where we take from, say, 12 years of age to 17 or 18, we're developing a process here. We're halfway through that. We have what's called a transition year. So they don't actually do sort of the linear studies during that period. Don't have any exams. And Paul was just saying in that transition year, recently, students that were offered the opportunity to go and work and show older people how to use IT and technology and computers. And in exchange, the older people shared their stories. And just going back to what you said about that paradigm shift, Joel, the new visage that we have here is the data is all available. All right. Now, the kid can actually access the data from a tactility point of view. Fingers move a lot faster. Data, the RAM is not as overloaded. And what is the difference? No, but the difference, there is another element. One is the older person has a story. And they've shown resilience to last, and perhaps in a very empowering element of that paradigm shift is if we find, I said, this idea of moving from what we call the sage on the stage to the guide on the side, that in a sort of new coaching dynamic, that we have a collaborative interchange of experience. And of course, we have to find new ways to redefine the language of discipline so that we end up having mutual respect. So I think that's the powerful element. Alan said earlier, I think he said about the industrial experience, when we went into the industrial period, the schooling solution at that time may have been at best fit for that purpose. But we have changed the dynamic. The fact is now we could choose to have a class of students who were from all the different countries in the world who just happened to get together on Blab on a Monday with Joel running this process. Or in fact, it could be a 10-year-old running the process. But there is an element that we have to look at. What is the value of older age or experience? And how is that mediated into that, that dialogue, you know?
Well, the value of, I mean, I was raised by my grandparents and my parents. And so to have my grandparents, you need to have traditional values inside of you, at least exposed to you, and you need to also embrace new ideas as well. And I think that's another place culturally where we're going internationally, is that we're being more accepting of each other, and we're willing to look at more than one place for influence. Whereas before in the industrial age, I feel like it was almost religious in the fact that you find one way, you stick to it. There's no other way. Us versus them. Okay, we're right, they're wrong. You know, this is how you do it. And if you don't agree, well, go to hell. You know. And now we're seeing people say, well, wait a minute. Let's look at all these ideas and collaborate and collectively come up with ideas that work for all of us.
Okay, guys, listen, I'm mindful we just come up to basically an hour in the show, and one, I'd like to thank everybody who participated, everybody came on stage. Just again to include a point that Kevin Howard has made, which is interesting. He said he thinks Alan Moore's point is very interesting. This idea of school being a learning place for showing deference to power. So I'm going to suggest, because we talk, myself and Alan Byrne talk, we think that this topic about education and men in education and the roles of it, I think, is something that we can develop further. For example, one of the things I'd like to start looking at is this idea of second chance education for adult males who maybe didn't have a good first-time experience. And also, like, I'm coming up to 60 years of age next month, there's a whole other layer of learning opportunities which emerge. I've taken earlier time and I'm in that space. So what I'm looking forward to doing, guys, I'm looking to carry on this conversation at the same time next week. The other thing, just for our lookers, we're trying to develop, I have bought a domain, which is HowShouldManLive.com, and I'm trying to curate that material into that space. And what we'll try and do is try and collect the and on the right hand side, Alan, if you can try and cut and paste the stuff, we might try and carry the chat in to the written sense and also build in dialogues and create maybe a common space around that. So what we're trying on an increasing, I mean, ultimately, Joel, and to explain it, what we're looking to do is create organic conversations by men, which really show the positivity of male interest. I mean, nothing in this conversation shows anything other than whatever we're trying to do, we're looking for answers to make for a better society. That's our objective here. So can I just say, guys, maybe you want to say goodbye or say a last word to anybody before we shoot you all?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I love the show. And definitely direct message me on Twitter and we can work something out. I would love to help you in any way I can. Super.
Thanks, Joel. And again, both Alans, delighted for your company. And for those guys who joined us on the side, some mic problems, etc. The beauty about Blab is it is in beta. It's an organic process. And, you know, we just pull away and get forward with it. And again, we'll trap this data for later on. So I love you and leave you guys and see you next week. Okay. All the best.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So I'll just take people out. I'll just kick Alan out there, and then I'll wind it down. So what I'm going to do, Alan, I'm just going to set off, kill the record at the end here, okay? Okay, and then we just kill it.